Happy politics, and welcome to yet another planned, unplanned pandemic election hot stove on a Tuesday of all days. My name is Maclean K. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Orca, and I'm joined in a socially distant manner by...
It's Jordan Bateman, VP Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association here in Burnaby, British Columbia.
And it looks like a beautiful day indoors.
It is. It's bright and sunny. We're on the 7th floor of Metro Tower 3. We have a 360-degree view. I can say it is one of those days where you're like, oh yeah, that old supernatural BC slogan certainly fits.
Nice. If I get outside today, I will probably try
You're
and
in
enjoy
Victoria.
it,
Don't go outside. It's not safe. I've been
That's true.
following Adam
That's true,
Sterling
especially
on
around
Twitter.
here.
Now I know.
All right, let's talk about, speaking of safe and unsafe and big splashes. Yesterday saw the first big sort of event, the first big idea of this campaign. The BC Liberals, Andrew Wilkinson, proposed getting rid of the PST altogether for 1 year. And then after a year, it would be, currently it's at 7%, it would go down to 3% until such time as the economy recovers. A lot of reaction to this. Where are you on it?
Well, Maclean, you know my predisposition for bold economic measures. I've been arguing for bold measures for quite a while. And, you know, frankly, I didn't know Andrew Wilkinson had it in him. This is a bold agenda that goes against that kind of type that it goes against the little box that Horgan wants to keep Andrew Wilkinson and the BC Liberals in. You know, what's the Horgan messaging about the BC Liberals? Oh, they're only in it for rich people. They hate working class people. They hate poor people, and they're just going to give tax cuts to wealthy people, and they're going to balance the budget on the backs of the COVID and austerity, and oh my God, the whole place will go to hell in a handbasket. Well, this flies in the face of all that, because what Wilkinson essentially is saying is like, look, every government, I think this was his exact line, every government in the Western world is running a deficit, a massive deficit. And the reason why is we've got to pull the economy up off the mat. And there are very few actual policy options governments have to do that, levers that they can pull. PST is a brilliant lever to pull in this because it helps small business by giving people just like that, 7% more money to spend on different things, reduces their prices, also reduces all the prices of things that small businesses need in order to operate. It will be an infusion into construction. I'm a construction association rep. Look, it'll fast track a bunch of housing starts next year because PST gets layered in over and over and over again on supplies and services bought in the construction of a house. That could actually help bring housing prices down, by the way. And
I hadn't thought of that, actually.
Well, thank you. That's why I get the big bucks over here. And, and the other thing is it actually helps poor people more. So Trevor Tombay, who's probably not a fan of cutting sales taxes in general, has a chart that shows that, as proportion of income goes, the less you make, the more money you'll save by this plan. And that's a big change. Look, luxury cars, they'll still be taxed at the 20% PST rate. Vapes and marijuana is still going to be taxed at the higher rate. But for the stuff you buy every day, diapers, we don't buy diapers every day, thank God. But diapers,
Some people do.
Yeah, some people do. Diapers, clothes, hockey, like all these different things are going to get a little bit cheaper. And I just don't know what the problem is with leaving more money in people's pockets. Will it take? We haven't seen the platform yet, so we don't know. Maybe there's some costs finagling going around. Will it take the deficit this year from 13 billion to 15 billion? Yeah. So Horgan's $1.5 billion plan was weak the day it was announced. Certainly didn't do anything for a lot of these industries that are just completely floored by what's happened. Doesn't do anything for the communities like. I wrote about this on the weekend for the Orca, walking through Horseshoe Bay, seeing all these closed businesses, and in Whistler, and in Vancouver, and in Burnaby, and in Langley, they're all over the place, Penticton, Kelowna, closed businesses everywhere. You're giving them a fighting chance. And that's all these small business folks are asking for. So, kudos to the BC Liberals for rolling this out. They rolled it out early. They'll come back with the costing and all those things, but look, I'm as fiscal conservative as they come. COVID is a whole different world, man. Like you can't have austerity measures during this point. You've got to spend what it takes to save the economy, or we will never, ever be able to balance a budget again, 5, 10, 15, 30 years down the road. You got to do what it takes.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the questions Andrew Wilkinson got yesterday was, I'm not going to get it verbatim, but essentially, does this mean you're planning to have a deficit? And the answer was, yeah.
Yeah. The answer should have been, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, like every other government. Like,
yeah, well, that's what he said. Every other jurisdiction in the Western world is going to have a deficit for a while.
Yeah.
A lot of the objections you saw yesterday would have been completely valid a year ago, I think. They
Yeah.
were like, well, this means they'll take us from the black to the red. Well, as you noticed, we're 13 billion in the red already.
Yeah.
And so that argument is kind of like that bridge is behind us.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing.
No.
I'm not happy about it, but I mean, we're here where we are. We are where we are. Thank you.
Yeah.
To quote the immortal Todd Bertuzzi, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I saw it was interesting politically, if you set aside the economics of it for a reason, because it was clearly a surprise. The NDP did not know this was coming.
Nope.
And some of the reaction was, as I say, sort of the kind of thing you would have expected a year ago. But also, if you're going to object saying, well, this will only the people this will help most will be, family incomes of $120,000 a year or more, which I'm not sure about, but that was the reasoning given. Do not send people who make more than that themselves to make that point, which is what happened yesterday. That's the problem with highly paid political staff, is that it's hard to wear the mantle of, grieving for the poor when you yourself make more than the threshold, but, do go on.
And let's hold up right there, Maclean. Let's talk about families that make $120,000 a year. Those, wealthy, elite British Columbians, apparently, that, all of Horgan's staff are part of. If you're in any kind of, if you're a cop, if you're a firefighter, if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, if you're, I don't know, what's your favorite working job? If you're a warehouseman, if you're a longshoreman, and you're married to another one in that gap, guess what? You make 120 grand a year. And I guarantee you, as a family, you probably don't feel rich or elite or wealthy or like you're getting ahead. I live in Walnut Grove, very, middle class, upper middle class neighborhood in Langley. People making that amount of money and more, and you talk to them, no one's getting ahead. Everyone's swimming in visa debt. Everyone's worried about their next thing. All your, raises, bonuses, hours are being cut. Like everything is being rolled back. And you're saying these folks can save a couple $1,000 in a year? Yeah, they'll do it. Like that makes perfect sense. And at a time where we desperately need relief, that's not just targeted to tiny little groups that happen to have the government's favor. This is a broad-based tax cut that helps poor people more, but will be rippled through the entire economy. When the press release came out on Sunday, I think the Liberals termed it like Wilkinson has an announcement in Richmond that will benefit every British Columbian. And I'm like, well, okay, so I guess that's not the new Massey because, that would not going to benefit someone in Terrace. But lo and behold, by God, he did it. That is an announcement that would benefit every British Columbian. And at a time where every British Columbian pretty much needs help. I'm not worried about the Jimmy Pattisons and Glenn Clarks of the world. They'll be just fine. They're all good. They're doing great. I'm worried about these families and especially these entrepreneurs who are just on the razor's edge. And this helps. And, what I laughed about was the arguments are so crazy from the NDP. Sales taxes are, an important part of our overall economic. You can call it's a regressive tax. And it's not Jordan, the old Canadian Taxpayer Federation, right-wing conservative saying it. It's the friggin' Canadian Center for Policy Alternatives calls it a regressive tax. The CCPA, which is leftier than left, says it's a regressive tax. And you know what regressive taxes means? It means the poor have to pay more than the rich. That's exactly the kind of tax you should be trying to cut. It blows my mind, some of these arguments that are going on. It reminds me of the Portman Bridge. Remember Clark came out and she said, I'm going to cap tolls at $500. And Bob Dorr very famously got his guys together and said, we're going to cut it completely, which flies in the face of mobility pricing, their environmental agenda, fiscal, everything that the NDP were espousing. Well, guess what? It worked. I mean, I appreciate it. I use support members today. Didn't have to pay a toll. It was great. But, it put everyone into the wrong boxes, right? And I remember when that announcement about capping at $500 came out, the first wave from the NDP flunkies out there who weren't, in the room with Bob Dorr was, this is terrible, it's going to ratchet it up congestion, emissions, we're choking our children, climate change, this is awful, God, these liberals are going to bankrupt us. Next, the announcement comes, what a brilliant visionary move, toll-free BC, God bless John Horgan for hearing the working people. Well, now you're, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and now you're seeing it with this issue.
It's true. And I think it was Adam Sterling, friend of the show, who said something yesterday
Love
to the
Adam
effect
Sterling.
of, he said something yesterday to the effect of, you're hearing a lot of objections to this saying, well, we can't afford it. How are we going to pay for it? And he said, you're right, but no one can afford anything anymore. That's like the economy's been blown out of the water. That's the problem.
Yes.
That's the issue. That yes, we can't afford it. We can't afford everything right now.
Yeah.
We're $13 billion in the hole in this province alone. I don't even want. If I think I can remember what the federal deficit's projected at, I don't want to because it's scary. But that's the central issue here: is that we can't afford anything anymore. We are very much living on debt and credit right now, and there's no other option.
Yeah. Look, let's think back, right? Let's think back to significant worldwide financial disasters that have happened. You got the 30s, the Depression. FDR comes out with the New Deal. Can you imagine saying now, oh, you shouldn't be borrowing money, we don't have it, oh my God, you shouldn't be investing. No, it was like people were starving. Like you had to do something. And he did it. You think after World War II, oh, we shouldn't be housing, encouraging veterans to buy homes. We shouldn't be, how are we going to afford it? No, it was war. It was post-war. You had to do something. You have to do radical things to pull this economy up off the mat and give the entrepreneurs and small business and employers a fighting chance, and to give consumers a fighting chance. Look, hopefully, economically they take that most people take that 7% and either borrow a little bit less or but whatever. But even if they take half of it and do that and take the other half and spend, you're still talking about a big boost for the economy. And then there's all the investment things that happen. And like we're at a time where people are sitting on their wallets. And I mean this as like investors, people who create jobs. They're sitting on their wallets if they have them and saying, I'm going to wait and see. And we see it with construction order books for 2021. 2020, we're holding our own. 2021, we're worried because government's not tendering fast enough and private sector is waiting like, I got to wait and see how this is going to all pan out. If you take off the PST and you can say, we can build that house for you now 15% cheaper, they'll get off their wallet. Like that is an immediate stimulus to go. Like that's a kick in the pants. Like let's get this done this year as much as possible. Order. So it makes sense from that point of view. I love to see the NDP claiming it's not going to help anyone when obviously it will. And the great thing about the PST is, first of all, British Columbians are hypersensitive to it because of HST. And second of all, so we are all aware of it. And second of all, everyone knows that they pay PST on stuff. And when you pay PST next time, you're going to be thinking to yourself like, I could go a year without paying this. That wouldn't be bad.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they had to do something. They had to do something radical, and this can underpin. I'll also give you this other thing. There are ways to save money without cutting healthcare and education, like the NDP would claim. One way you could cut is, look, we know the NDP, if they get a majority government, they're going to go hard into their union ways, and they are going to take probably every project the government tenders over $50 million and tender it through their union-only monopolies. That raises construction prices 20 to 30% depending on the project because there's more bureaucracy, fewer bidders because companies don't want to lay off all their employees and have them go work for an ICBC-like government agency. So right then and there, you think of like whatever the capital plan is over the next few years, $10 billion, let's say, it's probably more than that. You add 30% to that, that's $3 billion. Well, Liberals can take that $3 billion and put it towards this PST forgiveness, which is only for 1 year. It's not like this is an ongoing hole in the budget.
Yeah.
There's lots of options there. There's lots of places to cut NDP largesse. And that's why the NDP hate this idea so much.
Yeah, it's. There's a couple of things this reminds me of. I don't want to talk about the PST the whole show, but it is a big idea, and it's the first big idea of this campaign. Yeah. You mentioned it's only for 1 year. To me, that sounds like a lot of banks and mortgage lending institutions, when COVID hit, said, we're prepared to forgive you a month. Mm-hmm. No one is saying, guess what, your mortgage, it's on the house. Yeah. No pun intended. They are saying, listen, everyone needs help right now, and if a month can help, then let's talk. Yeah. This is kind of the same thing. PST for a year, if this is going to help, if it's going to stimulate spending, then let's talk. The other thing, and I wrote about this, is that what the debate about this will remind me of, and I'm not talking about the policy itself, but the debate about it, if for those of us who are Albertan expats, in 2005, yeah, you're smiling, faced with a massive unexpected surplus, which pains me even to say the words, the then Ralph Klein government decided they would just give some money back, and they cut a check for $400 to every Albertan. Now, again, set aside the policy argument. You can think that was a terrible idea, and that's fine. But the problem was the opposition of the time phrased it and framed it in the worst possible way. They literally said that Albertans will waste this money. They will spend it on a stereo or dining out, or worse, a ski trip to Banff.
No.
How dare they?
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, and it's one of those things that A, it's condescending, and B, those things are not bad for the economy in Alberta. I don't care who you are.
Banff will welcome you tomorrow. Please come in.
Yeah. So there were people saying, it kind of betrays some implicit assumptions if you're saying, well, $400, that could be much better spent by government. I think the average person hears something like that and says, man, what I would do with $400.
Yeah. Well, it's that old, was it the Fed Libs who derided the Harper child care credit and said, well, parents will blow it on beer and popcorn?
Yeah.
One of the stupidest comments ever. Although we do buy the Costco popcorn quite, a lot of it. But nonetheless, I don't do it with my childcare credit, I can tell you that. I just want full disclosure, Maclean. I don't want to be hiding something from the people. I'm not one of these champagne socialists like the NDP backroom saying that they don't know anyone who makes $120,000 a year, except, themselves in the mirror. I do buy popcorn from Costco.
And literally all of their colleagues. But the point is that you can criticize it on an economic level if you want.
Yeah.
But never tell people that they're too stupid to use the money responsibly, because that's a losing strategy.
Yeah, no, exactly. Anyways, it's a radical idea. It gives Wilkinson a good message to go back to again and again. And every day now he can peel out, this business will benefit because XYZ, this family will benefit with $1,100 more in their pockets. That is a good message to have day after day after day. And, I haven't heard yet, what's the debate plan here? Ballots are arriving, candidates are secured as of Saturday, and we don't have any debates on the agenda.
Blank ballots.
Yeah, blank ballots.
Blank ballots. Yeah. I'm not a fan of that at all. I just think it's rife for mistakes. Elections BC has said they're going to be generous in terms of things like typos and spelling. If you're writing,
So what if I just write NDP? Will it count?
Yeah, apparently, yes, it will. Which I'm not a fan of.
I think you should at least have to know what riding you're living in.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't like it, and there is going to have to be a gray area judgment call where a typo or getting something wrong this is fine and this is not. It's kind of like the hanging Chad thing in Florida from what year that was, 2000, where it's like, does this count? Does this constitute an attempt to mark the ballot here, or does it not? And it sounds like there's always going to be an obvious yes and obvious no, but there's always things in the middle. Yeah. And if somebody writes, I'm struggling to come up with a good example here, but what
if they write BC Construction Party, but they mean BC Conservative Party?
Exactly. Or what if here's a good one. What if you're in Stikine and you write Doug Donaldson?
Oh, that's a good point. He's been your MLA forever, but he's not running.
Yeah. Clearly you're indicating support for the NDP, but Doug Donaldson is definitely not on the ballot. And, that's probably an extreme example, but there's going to be lots of at what point does a typo become too egregious? You're asking a lot of Elections BC scrutineers. Am I suggesting they're not up to the job? No, I'm not. But I am suggesting that there is, at a certain point, there's going to be a judgment call where this constitutes an attempt to make a clear indication of how they want to vote, and this is just a spoiled ballot. And where here has to be consistent. And I fear that can't possibly be. We're already talking about 400,000 blank ballots that are being sent out. That is an astronomical number.
Yeah. I'm voting in person, Maclean, just so you know.
I am too.
I may do an advance poll, but I'm going to vote in person. I don't know. Number one, I feel like the Elections BC going to have enough to do without worrying about one more ballot. But this is what happens when you rush an election call, right? If they'd been able to plan for spring, they could have changed their deadlines, done a little bit more, or certainly if they had gone to the actual election date, they could have done a lot better. But I feel, Elections BC, we're not going to have a government for weeks. It's going to take weeks to count these ballots.
Yeah, and it's a good thing there's nothing crucial going on right now in which we would need the certainty and stability of the government, as we're being told.
That's the other thing. You have to count these ballots in a socially distant manner. So you can't put, and scrutineers have to be there in a socially distant manner. And so that's going to slow it down even more because, you can't handle the same things. We're still at a stage where kids playing fall ball and we're sanitizing his own bat that only he touches, but you sanitize it after every use because that's Dr. Bonnie's rule. It's stupid and it's theater and it doesn't actually stop the spread of COVID, but that is the rule. So I assume, all these people are going to be masked, gloves, not going to be able to hand ballots to each other. How's that going to happen?
We're not going to know who the next government is on election night. I think that's...
Wouldn't it be funny if we don't know until October 2021 and we could have had the election then? Oh, sorry.
Well, I mean, it does. I mean, we're probably, how many recounts did we have in the last election? More than one. Well, that took how long to iron out who won a crucial riding in Courtney Comax? I mean, I am nervous, to be honest, is the best word for it. It just seems too open to interpretation and error and delay at a time when we really can't afford any of those things.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, you want to talk about Langley?
Let's talk about Langley.
Langley East.
Langley East. There's a lot going on in Langley. Let's start with the candidate who, I guess he's no longer the candidate. This happened over a fall weekend. I mean, it just kind of happened.
Yeah. So Langley East, BC Liberal stronghold, held by Rich Coleman since 1996. He's retiring, and not surprisingly, that nomination was. Obviously a coveted one in the community among the political folks, and 3 candidates put in their papers to the party to run there. Eric Woodward, a sitting township councillor, Margaret Kuntz, another sitting township councillor, and Miranda Wemyss, who's involved with the Federal Conservative Party here in Langley, Surrey. Miranda and Margaret were approved. They were starting to prepare for a nomination race. Eric was not approved. And when it became clear that an election call was coming, Eric called the BC Liberals, lobbying to be approved, lobbying to be acclaimed as the candidate, tried his best. He'd been a BC Liberal member apparently since 2017, but the party instead decided to appoint Margaret Kuntz as the candidate for Langley East. Turns out, old Eric was, by his own admission, talking to the NDP throughout August. At the same time, he's got his papers in with the BC Liberals and is lobbying them for a nomination. And on, I think, Friday afternoon, the newspaper puts out a story interviewing him, saying, hey, he's the candidate for the NDP. As a Langley guy, I found this mighty surprising since, I know that he had been signing up members for the BC Liberal Party. I know he had been going hat in hand to get BC Liberals to sign his nomination papers. And I knew he'd been, aggressively trying to get this nomination. Also, really surprised the Kwantlen First Nation, and a few of their folks, Brandon Gabriel, a very renowned and respected artist within that community and related to the family that governs the Kwantlens. Dr. Robert Jago, a reporter, a journalist, very deep on the Indigenous issues. They started tweeting out their experiences with Eric Woodward. And within a day, Eric had taken down his Facebook post announcing his nomination and disappeared into the mist. And the NDP confirmed that he had withdrawn as a candidate, although my fairly limited NDP sources tell me it was one of those, you want to walk before we kick.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he's gone. There was a Green Party nomination open in Langley. I thought maybe he'd go for that one, but he did not, to my knowledge. Someone else has been appointed the candidate there. He was very unhappy. He claimed at the time it was something to do with like the Laurie Thronith-Sogi stuff. That doesn't really hold water because that had all happened in May and June. He put his nomination papers in July, and as late as 2 weeks ago was still lobbying to try to get the nomination. So that's basically just spin. But interestingly, he very clearly. So I think on the Monday, Margaret Kuntz had been appointed the candidate for the BC Liberals. He knew he was out. He was negotiating with the NDP. So he apparently threw a rainbow crosswalk motion out on the Township Council agenda. And I guess there's a few first of all, there's already a rainbow crosswalk in Langley. It's in Fort Langley. It's beautiful, very pedestrian. It's well used and completely uncontroversial, especially at this point. It's probably been there more than a year, maybe 2, I'm not sure, but it's been there quite a while. But there had been some discussion among council and school board and other folks, like we should really have a policy on these things. We shouldn't be doing these ad hoc crosswalks and different things on the LGBTQ file. we should have an overarching policy so staff can kind of budget for them and make them happen, which, by the way, is exactly what township councils are supposed to do, set policy for your staff to execute. So she voted to, refer this crosswalk to that policy procedure. And then, lo and behold, CTV last night announced or published a story claiming that she'd voted against a rainbow crosswalk. Interesting, very clearly a planted story, and was planning to be a bullet in the gun of the disgraced NDP candidate. But, I think for most Langley folks, we're looking at it like, we already have a rainbow crosswalk, so click, that I think she voted on. I have to go back and look, but we already have a rainbow crosswalk, and she wants a policy for more? Okay, like, what's the story here? But if you spin it a certain way and you're a media guy from out of town who doesn't have the time to dig into Langley council politics, you end up with stories like
maybe
this.
is predisposed to sneer at Langley too. Let's be honest.
A Vancouver person sneering at Langley? I can't even imagine. And Spencer Chandler Herbert's out there banging the drum today. Well, Spence, come on out to Langley. I'll walk you across our rainbow crosswalk in Fort Langley. I'll even buy you a drink at Beatniks, and it'll be fine. And will there be more? Absolutely. Of course. There's different policies. I guess there's kind of there's rainbow crosswalks, there's festivals, there's pride days, there's flags. So they wanted to put it all together in one kind of overarching policy. Like, this is what we deem on these, and this is how they get township money or don't, and how we vet them. So that seems perfectly appropriate. Like, everything else in town gets prioritized. Why wouldn't this as well?
If you're suggesting that it's been politicized, how dare you?
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing about these. Like, that's the one part about rainbow crosswalks, right? That always kind of worry me is that they're crosswalks on roads where people drive, and the other day I'm coming past, I think it's Burnaby Central School on my way to work, and a kid darts out in front, and I hit my brakes fast. And I was in no danger of hitting them, but I hit my brakes fast. But I was about 5 feet away from the rainbow crosswalk. I thought, holy crap! Like, if I had done this in the rainbow crosswalk and left rubber on it, I'd be, would people think I'm homophobic? Would totally there was that West Van video that showed someone turning sharp off a right turn, and they claimed they were burning rubber to get around. Well, no, it was just that another car was coming quickly. Yeah. That was quietly dismissed after the cops realized they were being a little bit oversensitive. So it's a weird place to put a symbol, but rainbow crosswalks are kind of cool. Like, we love the one in Fort Langley. Kids love it. Like, sure, why not?
They're eye-catching. I like them.
Yeah. Let's have more. Let's have more of all sorts of kind of. It's also terrible to say, but it's also a bit of a traffic calming device because it stands out and people slow down. And it's good. So
I don't think that's terrible to say at all.
I mean, is that terrible to say? Well, it's because it's an important symbol. I want to be clear. Like, it's an important symbol, and my sister, has been in a long-term same-sex relationship, and I want to be clear, like, very supportive of her and that and all of that. But so when you talk about it's an important symbol. So when you talk about it also helps with traffic calming. It also helps beautify cities. Like, it makes life generally happier and better. I just want to make sure people realize, I know what it's for, and I get it, and I support it. And I think there'll be more in Langley. And, if Margaret Kuntz is still on council because she doesn't want a seat as an MLA in Langley, I'm sure she'll vote for it.
I didn't expect Langley would be, the news-making community over the weekend, but, it was.
Well, I aim to please.
So we've talked about Langley. Let's talk about the Green Party briefly. And, they obviously had a lot of media attention last week, but the uphill climb for them is getting candidates in line. Now, I guess name recognition doesn't matter as much in an election where you can just mark green. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's going to count.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I haven't checked this morning, but as of yesterday, they were at, was it 30 candidates lined up, or not that many?
Like that.
Or
I think it was 30-ish.
It's in that ballpark. Well, they're less than halfway because there's 87 ridings in this election.
Yeah.
And, they have, what is it, Tuesday? They've got a couple days, 3-4 days. And it's Saturday morning. Friday night is the deadline.
Yeah.
So
it's not simple either, I should say. You have to get 100 electors to sign your paper in your riding. They have to be vetted. So really you want to get 120.
In a pandemic.
So really you want to get 120 just to be safe, Well, honestly, most of these Green candidates, and especially in the no-hope ridings, they don't have a mailing list or a phone list of 120 people. So, you're relying, like, going down to the pub and, like, grabbing people, like, hey, can you sign? There's, I don't know about you, but I don't see a lot of these kind of marketing efforts anymore because people you're avoiding contact with other people. So that is the challenge. It's not just as easy as Sonia first now signing a paper and saying you're my candidate. You actually have to get local electors to help. Yeah. Look, the Greens will probably fall short, but I think as long as they're in that 75 or more range, the media will give them a pass, and rightfully so.
I quite agree. I mean, I don't think Sonia Firstnow or Adam Olsen or whoever else would ever admit this publicly. But if the Greens don't have a candidate in, Peace River South, then it's okay. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if they do get a candidate in Peace River
South, is that
South,
the Site C riding? Is that the Site C riding?
Oh, I always forget which one's which, to be honest.
I forget which one.
But I mean, like, if they do get a candidate in either of those ridings, my respect and my hat is off to either. Whoever decides to run. If you're putting your name forward, you have my respect. But
one thing I want to say about the Green candidates. So I looked through their website, and I gotta say, like, lots of young people, lots of women. It actually reminded me of Victoria's demographic. The newlywed and nearly deads. Like, that's kind of there's like the old guys, and then there's the young. Yeah. And it's cool. Like, anything you can do to bring different demographics into elections, I'm all for.
100%. The argument that I made yesterday in the piece was that, I mean, it's a particular handicap for the Greens because they have so many fewer resources than other parties. And so when it comes to candidate recruitment, they don't have, an army of people that can just go off and do that for a week. It's, it's Sonia Firstnow herself and a couple of key staffers. I mean, not none, but some. And time that they're going to spend this week hustling to get as close to 87 candidates as they can is time they will not spend preparing for what will be a crucial debate. It will not be time spent building a platform. They still don't have one yet. And of the three major party leaders, Sonia is the only one whose own riding is not safe territory by any stretch. So throughout the campaign, she's going to have to spend proportionately much more time and resources and attention on home base in a way that Andrew Wilkinson and John Horgan just don't. And so this week it's kind of a burnt week for them in some respects. They're still going to do some campaigning. She has an event today at 12:30, I believe. But there's a lot of time behind the scenes. They do share her itinerary every day where she's, just like working away on stuff because they don't really have any other choice right now.
Yeah. I will say I thought her comments yesterday over the weekend, the NDP say I don't support $10 a day daycare. They're right. We support free daycare. I thought that was pretty funny. Like that was shut up, John. Essentially, that's what she's saying, right? And I enjoyed that. Yeah, I forget who trotted out this interesting stat, but no incumbent Green Party elected official in all of Canada has ever been defeated. So Elizabeth May was never defeated, Andrew Weaver was never defeated, and then Adrian Carr won re-election, and I guess back east there's like one that's won re-election. So they've never been defeated. So Sonia and Adam putting the perfect record on the line here. I think that may get broken this time, but who knows?
That's true. Well, that's a tough riding for Sonia Cowichan. Yeah. Although it has been traditional NDP territory, but this is true. I did go back and look at the numbers, and the Green share, even pre-Sonia, had been steadily increasing. Okay. And she does have solid name recognition in the riding. And so while she did benefit from some NDP infighting last election, I wouldn't call her a long shot. I just don't think it's a sure thing at all. Yeah. And Adam Olsen, I didn't realize how much he had won the riding by last time. Again, that is a tricky riding, and all three parties can claim a reasonable shot at it. But I mean, again, he's probably a very slight favorite in that riding. I would say, very slight.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, that. The NDP won't want to hear that because they need to win those to get their majority.
Badly. Yeah, and that's why part of the reason they're doing this now is to wipe them out.
Okay, our last episode, we did it just after the Neetu Garcha interview of John Horgan.
Yes.
And then that went crazy on social media as self-proclaimed progressives and woke lefties went after Neetu for being a bad journalist, a young woman, horrible, mixed up with Sonia Sunger, like everything bad that you can see, like everything you hate about the internet happened to this poor news anchor? Well, I shouldn't say poor. I mean, she's feisty and smart and like she's not, but still.
But she took a lot of abuse over the weekend, so yeah.
Totally. And, kudos to the other media for rallying to her and being like, hey, this is inappropriate. I would encourage her to liberally use the block button on some of these idiots. But, it comes down to, like, it's one of those things where it's all about who your horse is, right? If she had said if she had held Wilkinson to like a similar tough account, you should be a hero of the left, and maybe it's the BC Liberals who are saying, well, that's not great journalism, but because it was their guy, it's just it was an interesting dynamic, and I think not one that I had expected.
The Streisand effect, right? I mean, it's if the NDP wanted that interview to go away and fall into the memory hole, they should have just shut up about it.
Yeah.
Because it probably would have. I mean, it would have. I'm not suggesting it doesn't matter, but I mean, 48 hours later, it's going to kind of simmer down.
Yeah.
People calling her, rude and young and inexperienced, and as you pointed out, mistaking her with another South Asian anchor on the same network. Anyway, all that, besides being offensive, the one thing it did do was ensure more and more people saw the interview, and it kept it in the news cycle.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you don't want if you're the NDP. So that's what the Streisand effect, if you're not familiar, is named after Barbara Streisand. Yes, that Barbara Streisand, trying to get an injunction to prevent people from photographing her, mansion from the air, because I guess it's palatial. It's Barbara Streisand. So what happened? More people photographed it because they heard, oh my God, there must be something there worth seeing.
Yeah.
It's a documented effect. And so, I mean, we saw a pretty clear example of it in BC politics over the weekend.
Yeah. And then, 2 days later, David Aiken from Global Canada, he's tweeting it out. And yeah, so it even got past the BC bubble out into the rest of Canada, which is hard to do for BC issues. So yeah, it's... that was not a great look for the NDP, especially in an election where they're, already getting in trouble for mansplaining to Sonia Fursono how government really works.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have seen, for the NDP, it would have been smart for them to send out, anyone, even John Horgan, to say, I got a rough ride in this interview, but stop. That's my job, is to take tough questions, and she's a great interviewer. That would have short-circuited a lot of the criticism, but it never came.
No, that's a good point. And again, NDP campaign not doing a great job here. They're reeling.
A lot of blunders. Well, the election is still young. We're 1 week, or it feels like a month in. It'll be longer because, as we say, on election night, I don't think it's over.
Yeah. Hey, you gonna watch the Trump Biden debate tonight, or are you taking a pass?
Oh man, I know I should, but I really don't want to.
Is it bad? Is it bad? It just feels like watching Dumb and Dumber. Like, I'm sorry, neither of them are terribly inspiring candidates. I mean, Joe's story of overcoming personal tragedy I find very compelling, and his best interview was a couple years ago on Stephen Colbert after his son Beau passed away. And that was a legit emotional interview.
Yep.
But now, it sounds terrible. All that tragedy gets packaged up into neat little social media slices, and it doesn't resonate the same way. Just out of repetition, the authenticity is lost. And then Trump is just, I don't know how you debate. How do you debate Trump? It's like wrestling water, right?
Yeah, that's true. That was the point I was going to make, is that you can't, a Trump debate is not a debate in any sense of the word. You're never going to get him to say, okay, yeah, that was a good point. He's not going to be pinned to the ground with logic or facts. Yeah. It's a stunt show. He's going to say whatever he wants. Hillary Clinton had no idea how, and this is not a criticism, had no idea how to handle him wandering around the stage behind her saying, you're going to jail and all that. Because it's just so out there. And there's nothing in the last 4 years suggests that he's going to handle tonight any differently. And in fact, he kind of almost has to. It's his brand, and that's what his supporters want. And it's, so yeah, I feel like I should watch, but I'm not looking forward to it. It's going to be depressing.
Yeah, what the Trump presidency reminds me of in a lot of ways is that on Survivor, whenever there's like really crazy character, the fan fiction that revolves around the crazy character is the crazy is an act to get to the end, and then they're going to slip off the mask and say, I wasn't crazy all along, I was crazy like a fox, and like lay out the strategic way they got there, right? But it never happens because they were just a TV character. They were nuts, right? Like they weren't actually, strategic about it at all. And that's what I feel like with Trump, right? For a lot of folks over the years, they were just waiting for him to pull off the mask. And like, the ultimate troll would be him to show up tonight and actually look presidential and like, answer questions like Obama would answer them. But that is never going to be him. Like that's not him. There is no secret, smart, reasonable, politician that's going to suddenly emerge there. And so for Biden, like if you're Biden today, you must just be dreading this, right? Like it's almost no win. Like,
yeah. How do you shame somebody who quite evidently feels no shame?
Yeah.
You can't do it. It's like starting a water fight with somebody who's already in the pool.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do to
make them wetter. Yeah, right, exactly right. Well, there you go. That should be that should be the title for the episode. There's nothing you can do to make Trump wetter.
We'll
workshop
that. We'll workshop that off the air. And until such time, while we're workshopping it, you can find us all of your favorite podcasting places, including Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, the mothership at theorchid.ca. I am Maclean K. That is and was Jordan Bateman. And until Thursday, happy politics.
Friday.
Until Friday, happy politics.